biological sciences.
Correct.
Um, yeah. So thank you very much for speaking with me. I just thought it would be interesting to get a bit of context around the work, which is on display at the moment in the James Barry Exhibition Centre as part of the STEAM exhibition. I think it's very interesting to contextualize that work with research and information, and that is something that you're an expert in, I believe.
Let's see.
So I suppose
Let's see.
I'll crack on anyway.
Sure.
So what I wanted to talk to you today about is kind of the context of the work that I have on display in the show at the moment. So my sculptural pieces, some of which are on display as part of the STEAM exhibition, often draw on skin reactions and inflammation as source material. But I was just wondering if you could give a bit of context around what exactly is inflammation.
Sure, yeah. And first of all, well done on putting together such an outstanding exhibition, Sarah. And I hope people take the opportunity to go and see it. So inflammation, yeah, it's a biological process, as you're probably aware. And in very, very simple terms, it's related to the immune system. So we're all familiar with the immune system at the minute with vaccinations for COVID and so on. But it's when the immune system does something that it shouldn't really do. It creates an inflammatory response. So it's an over expression of specific components of the immune system that then manifest itself in the body, sometimes in the form of skin inflammation, which is easy to see. Sometimes the inflammation can be internal as well. So people suffering with diseases like Crohn's disease suffer internal gut-based inflammation. So it's the immune system acting in a way that it shouldn't really do, producing lots of inflammatory biological molecules that can then show up in different parts of the body and cause different levels of distress for the patient.
Thank you so much. That's very interesting. And I suppose what you said there about it being an immune response is very pertinent to my own research, because often the images I was working from were images of my own hands. I have an autoimmune condition known as Raynaud's syndrome, which manifests as like swelling of the
Mm.
extremities due to adverse reaction to kind of low temperatures and stuff like that. Um, and so one thing that was interesting to me and that really inspired my work was that kind of physical reaction, or the way that a body can swell or maybe callous over in response to a trauma. And then the idea also of that being a metaphor for a mental reaction or an emotional reaction to a traumatic or difficult event. And obviously that was very poetic and symbolic in my work, but I would get the sense from what we've talked about before that that connection between the physical and mental health is much more real. Would you agree?
Absolutely, they both inform each other, Sarah. So, your own physical well-being can have a very significant impact on your mental health, and equally, your mental health can have a very significant impact on your physical being. It works in a cyclical fashion, so they both inform each other in different ways. One of the easiest ways to try and put that into context would be if anyone is preparing for doing something that could be a little bit stressful, like standing in front of an audience or going for an interview. You'll automatically feel your physical body changing. You'll start feeling butterflies, you start feeling nervous, your heart rate will increase. So your physical well-being is very much influenced by the thoughts that you're producing in response to the situation that you're experiencing. And as I said, it can equally work in reverse. So if you're not feeling physically well, then that can also have a very negative impact on your mental health. So one definitely does inform the other. Another really good example might be the way in which we look at clinical trials for medicines. We often introduce what's called a placebo, which is where patients get basically a sugar pill or something that contains very little therapeutic benefit. Yet many patients will see a positive outcome from their symptoms, even though they're taking something which has no therapeutic value. So what you think about can have a kind of a very significant impact on your overall physical well-being and the way in which your body reacts to your thoughts and your mental state.
that definitely would have been a lot of the idea behind my research, but to hear that kind of put into very simple and straightforward words like that definitely illustrates it very well. And I suppose another kind of concept that I would have been looking at a lot in my work is the idea of body image. I use mirrors a lot in my work to talk about maybe the reflection of oneself or one's self-image. And some of my work has been described by viewers and examiners as being very maybe grotesque or kind of abhorrent, but it's also an illustration or an exaggerated illustration of like my own body or the own sensation of being in a body. And I suppose that relationship between what we perceive a body should look like and how a body actually feels, or how it feels to be in your body, is something I'm very, very interested in. Definitely as a young woman and in my younger years, I would have struggled quite a lot with poor self-image. And I know that that's a major issue for a lot of people in Ireland, especially at the moment. Would you say that that idea of poor self-image is very related to kind of more physical or like biological practices, or would you say that it's completely a mental kind of thing?
It's a little bit of both, actually, Sarah. So having a poor body image is something, unfortunately, that many people suffer from, particularly those in teenage years. And I think there's two reasons for that. One, we're hugely influenced, particularly in social media, and we're just being blitzed by perfect bodies and perfect images of bodies from magazines and from social media and popular culture, which is unfortunate because it puts huge pressure on particularly teenagers. But secondly, we're also heavily influenced by the fact that the brain at that point, particularly in teenage years, hasn't really fully developed to a mature level yet to be able to distinguish what is normal versus what is perceived, and for that reason, particularly in teenage years, they can be very negatively influenced by what they're seeing because they can't distinguish between what they do look like and maybe what they should look like. And that can have serious psychological and negative consequences that, again, can relate to poor body image. So some of it is down to brain formation and maturity, and that is probably more heavily influenced then by the fact that there is such a strong social media popular culture that almost demands, particularly teenage girls in particular, to look a certain way and to be pressurized into looking a certain way. And I think it's really important, obviously, to have good, strong support network when you're going through that difficult period of having poor body image, and to get the best advice and the best support that you can to overcome that.
Young people in general are under quite a lot of pressure, as are we all. So that pressure to maybe be following a certain exercise and diet regimen is also compounded by the pressure to maybe succeed in work or in college. And would you say that that kind of sense of always being on or always being connected to some, be it social media or some sort of goal, such as achieving very highly in college or at work, would you say that that has a correlation to like high levels of inflammation, or that being kind of an epidemic at the moment?
Absolutely. It kind of brings it full circle, Sarah, really, in relation to the situation we're in currently. Society is, we're an always on society, whether it's social media or whether it's emails, whether it's constant messaging. There isn't an off button at the minute, and the human body isn't designed to be always on. And many times, we're seeing much more levels of inflammation and negative reactions to this always on culture. One of the most heavily produced and most effective drugs being produced at the minute is a drug called Humira, which is designed to treat inflammation. It generates revenue of somewhere between 14 and 18 billion euros per annum for the company that produce it. and it's designed to treat diseases of inflammation. Many, not all of them, but certainly many of them, as a result of inflammation that's generated as a result of living in a very heavily always on full on culture where the body hasn't got time to switch off. It's been constantly stimulated either through technological means or just having very, very busy schedules. So because the body isn't designed to be always on, in fact, it's designed to be nearly always off, then obviously the body will respond in a way which it's designed to do, which is to be protective. So it thinks it's being protective by launching what's called a stress response, which then results in inflammation. But that inflammation can then lead to inflammatory conditions that might need some medical intervention. And a lot of the time, patients are put on lighter medications, but ultimately might need to go on to the very, very heavy medications such as Humira. And I think the fact that so much Humira is being prescribed nowadays, it's the largest selling medicine in the world at the minute from a biotech perspective, and it's designed to treat inflammatory diseases. And we can link inflammation to stress, and we can link stress to the current technological society we live in, which is always on. It comes nicely full circle that inflammation is a condition that in many instances is a response to the always on culture that we see.
That's so interesting, and you're right. That is very much full circle. It's almost spooky to think about, but it's given me a lot to think about, and I think it's a kind of a nice place to leave it there for our conversation today. I know that you're a busy man, so thank you so much for speaking with me. I've really appreciated it, and I find it very, very interesting to hear it put into a bit more perspective and kind of with that added element of context, especially about the anti-inflammatory drugs and the fact that be it selling, products to kind of enhance your self-perception or your body image, or be it selling kind of anti-inflammatory drugs, like it is big business, kind of a lot of these things that we're suffering with both physically and mentally. So it's a lot to think about and a lot to be angry about. But thank you very much for joining me today. And just to plug my exhibition again, so it's the STEAM exhibition, Cellular Exchange. And it's on arts.mtu.ie for the whole month of December. We'll be releasing new content such as this interview. So if anybody's watching this and has enjoyed this interview and would like to know more about us or our work, I'd encourage them to go check it out. And thanks very much, Jim.
Not at all, Sarah, and good luck with the rest of the exhibition, and look forward to seeing what else you produce in the future. Very talented artist, and well done.
Thank you very much.